Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
So the tips started coming in they were coming in to everybody within the family, me and my sister and Misty and Molly's uncle, and they were talking to everybody within the family if they heard something. But me, myself, I've got thousands. Like when I read this stuff, it's like, golly, it's like so many people had an opportunity and there was a missed opportunity to save these two. And I'm not saying he didn't try, because he did.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman.
This July, it will be 10 years since that fateful night when Molly and Colt went missing after being in that high-speed pursuit with Con Nip. It's hard to believe that their killers are still roaming around Love County while these families hope for answers.
When we started looking into this case for the television documentary in 2018, and now even deeper with the podcast, the one thing we've always come back to is that night in July when the chase happened. Those first 24 to 48 hours after the car chase are the seeds to what we really believe happened to Molly and Colt.
That is why we always go back to the beginning with this case and go over the tips that Paula received early on in her investigation to find out what happened to them. We only have a portion of the tips, which are in the thousands.
Today, we're going to have Paula walk us through some of the tips that she and her family received early on from a variety of sources to get a fresh look at them to see what we come up with.
Keep in mind, this investigation is still ongoing. For the investigators and for Paula, no one or nothing is off the table. So let's dive in with Paula and take another look at some of the tips that have come in.
All right, so we got Paula on today, and we thought it was appropriate to bring her on because it seems like we're going back to the beginning every time with this case, and I think it's important to talk about all the tips that have been brought to both us and Paula. Paula's been getting tips for 9 years. She's still getting tips. So Paula, give us an idea, like the level of tips, when you first started getting tips in the beginning, and we'll talk about some of the other tips that you've recently got, and then some of the older ones that we've been kind of going over again to try to rack our brain about what happened. But like, when did you first start getting tips on this case?
Well, it was probably approximately 2, maybe 3 weeks after Molly went missing, because I really didn't get involved until right at 2 weeks after she had disappeared. So the tips started coming in they were coming in to everybody within the family, me and my sister and Misty and Molly's uncle, and they were talking to everybody within the family if they heard something. But me, myself, I've got thousands of emails or messages that I've received over the years. And, some of that came people who became obsessed with the case, set up fake profiles and would send in information and that kind of thing. We've just received so many, and it's very overwhelming, as you guys know, because we've downloaded all of the tips, all of the information off our Facebook page, and we go over that, and we know that there's just so many different stories within all of these tips that we've gotten. A lot of it comes back to the same people.
That's what I was just going to say. Like,
what's the common thread?
Even though there's dozens and dozens of boxes, I'm talking boxes full of tips, papers. I mean, I've waded through thousands of pages, and it's always the same group. of people. That's the common thread. It's the same area and the same group of people over and over again. So it's like, there's some tips that we've looked at and been like, okay, that's nothing. But the three things that keep coming up is the location is the same, the people are the same, and there's other people that they keep trying to connect to this case, which is Jordan Buckaloo, and then an oil field worker who also went missing around the same time in the same area. So it's like there's these other elements at play here also, where other missing persons cases people have said are connected or related that really have never been solved.
And we've gotten tips from other people as saying that, can you look into my son or brother-in-laws? They've been missing, and could they went missing in that area? And can you look into that as well? So there's obviously things happening down there that shouldn't be happening.
Well, there is. There was just as late as yesterday, I talked to someone regarding some information, and then they proceeded to tell me about a person who had died in Love County, and it was ruled an accident or something to that nature. But this person knows for a fact, they claim that they know for a fact that person was murdered. And then I've spoken to another young man over the years who also has a family member who they tried to claim he committed suicide, but yet this boy is almost certain, he is certain in his mind that it was not suicide, that his brother was murdered. There's a lot. That's just a couple. There's been a lot of that has gone on over the years.
What is the strangest one you got that you said, like, you couldn't believe that someone came up with this, and that, whether it's related to the case or not, that really kind of took you back? Can you recall any of the strangest ones?
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to me that Molly just ran off. I've had people get in touch with me and tell me, we just saw Molly walking down the road on highway so-and-so, and surveillance video sent to me from a Walmart down in Texas claiming that this is Molly. I have never, from the last phone call I got from Molly's mother before I actually went down there, I have never since believed that she ran away. In those first 2 weeks, I really didn't know. I've explained before, I'm not from the area. I didn't really know what was going on in this situation. And so but once I got that last phone call from her mom before I actually went down there and started looking for her, I have not since believed that she was a runaway or she took off with Colt. And then there was a tip that I got from a woman in Tulsa at one point, and she was in the laundromat doing laundry, and she claims that Molly came into the laundromat and she told her she needed help. She needed to get out of this house where she was being held, and she had escaped and all of this. And she's telling me this story. And at the time, I wasn't dismissing it at all. Actually, the U.S. Marshals went to that location, and it was a bogus story, but it was checked out. But this woman was just convinced, and she didn't let it go. Even after it was checked out, I heard from this woman, I finally had to block her because it was almost like an obsession. And it was just all the time. And then she was in a vehicle. She claimed to have been in a truck with Colt, and it became an obsession with her. And even to this day, and that was like probably 2014, even to this day, periodically I'll get a friend request from her from a new account, and she just has never let it go.
Yeah, I know. We've gotten some of those as well, and it's hard, and I'm sure it's even harder for you because you're desperate for answers, and then you're hanging your hat on someone who's reaching out to you, and because you don't know what happened, none of us know what happened to them, so anything could be possible. So when someone has the seriousness to reach out to you to kind of explain to you what they think they saw, how do you discount it? I think at this point, we can discount any sightings of Colt and Molly. I just don't think they're here anymore. I don't think they're physically here anymore. But explain to me and to Cindy, what's that like when you're putting so much weight onto these people coming out to you, and you have a steely resolve about it now, but early on it must have been really confusing and emotional.
It was, and there was every tip, all the information had to be checked. You couldn't just assume that it was incorrect information or, and as time went by, and just like the time I ran into Joe Russell at a convenience store, and he was telling me that Con said they ran off to Wichita Falls with Jason Dillard. And, and I just told him, I said, as well as I do, they never left Long Hollow Road alive. And he didn't dispute that. But all of these people want to throw out this misinformation. I think we've learned enough over the years, whether we can believe the information or discredit the information immediately, but we don't. We keep a hold of everything because you never know when that might come back into play. So that's why we've got so much that we're actually still working through.
Yeah. And obviously the fact that people are afraid to come out. We were going over this earlier with you, and you sent us some early reports, and these are police reports about what happened. This particular one I'm going to read was dated 8/26/2013. Came into the sheriff's department. And I'm just going to read, I'm not going to talk about the officer it was given to, but I'll just read the subject of what this female person called in with tip. And she says, the female subject stated that she received information from someone that the body of Molly Miller was buried on some land southeast of Wilson, Oklahoma. I asked the female the location. The female stated that you go south on Dillard Road to the first road you can turn back east on, Bronco Road. The female stated that you go on the second and third cattle guards on the north side of the road. The female stated that Molly, is supposed to be buried somewhere between those two cattle guards. I asked the female if she knew whom the properties belonged to. The female stated yes, but she did not want to say due to being fear for her life. I asked the female whom she received her information from. She stated from one of the female subjects that had escaped from out of there. The female stated that they had been taking little girls out there and doing bad things to them. I asked the female to elaborate. She stated she could not, due to being fear for her life. The female stated that there are illegal narcotics out in these properties. I asked the female how she knew of the illegal narcotics and what type. She stated that she was told that it was methamphetamine. I asked the female if she would give me her name or contact information. The female stated she could not due to the people that did this to Molly being related to her, and that the fear of them killing her. That statement's weird. So she was saying that the woman that was giving the statement was saying that she was related to the people that did this to her.
Yes.
The female stated would only come forward with her name if the people were caught. At this time, the female became very upset, and the phone conversation was terminated. So that's just one, and that's early on. That's like a month after.
Right.
That's what I was saying so much, and it's what you've been saying so much. People out there know.
Well, and that tip right there goes along with the information that I got in October of 2013 when we had the benefit roping at Molly's grandpa's house for Molly and Colt. We had the benefit roping, and I saw two women pull up in a car, and they parked far down at the end of the arena. And so I was watching them, and one of them never got out of the car. The other one stood outside of the car. And so I decided to go down there and introduce myself. And once I got down there and started talking to the woman outside of the car, she was very nice. Both of the ladies were very nice. But she finally said to the other lady, "You need to tell her." And she was like, "No." And she's like, "Yes, tell her." And I just looked at the lady and I said, "Whatever you know or whatever you've been told, you need to tell me." Finally, after it took some convincing because the woman was scared, but she had told me that she had ridden out to exactly the location that you just described in that police report. She had ridden out there with She said that it was very, very strange. She had asked her to go for a ride with her, and so they did. And that's where they took her. They drove by the house and then turned around and came back by the house. And she said something to the effect that something bad happened there. And then we got multiple tips that morning. Sometime during that week, they had gone out to Dillard Road and picked up. So, and he was trying to get away from something or somebody. I'm not really sure. Those tips are buried. I'd have to go back. But
Yeah.
That was 2 months after that anonymous tip came in. And those women actually drove me out. They got in my vehicle and they actually showed me where to go.
Okay.
And it was exactly the location that woman stated.
That goes back to people knowing more than what they're saying they know, and they're afraid to come out and talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's always been the case. That's always been the case
It
with
has.
this. this. And
Yeah.
because they didn't have a safe place to come. But now they do.
Right.
But now they do.
Right.
Because the BIA has nothing to do with that area other than just overlooking everything else. They're not local law enforcement. Like I said before, if you felt fearful for coming out before, there's an organization you can come out and you shouldn't have to be fearful. What was that other one, Sin, that we were looking at?
This is also a voluntary statement to the Carter County Sheriff's Department, and it was made on August 4th, 2013. This is by DJ Epley.
Oh, okay. And remind us again, Paula, who DJ Epley is.
DJ Epley, he is the one who, there's 33 incoming and outgoing phone calls on Molly's phone alone from DJ Epley and to DJ Epley. He was out trying to locate them, and he was actually in the wrong location.
He went in and he gave a voluntary statement, and this is what he said. He said, every time I seen Molly Miller, which was only 5 to 7 days prior of her going missing, she was with Lee. She had mentioned that her mom had kicked her out, but didn't make a big deal out of it. I also knew that she was under the influence of drugs at least twice while I was around her. The night Colt and Molly picked me up, I noticed Colt favoring her and wanting to have a response for her every need or even comment she made. When I last seen them and was with them, I knew Colt and her had made plans to go to Ardmore, and that was the last face-to-face time I seen them, which was a couple of days before they ran away or went missing. The night they were with Con Nip and run from the police, they contacted me on my phone asking for help with a ride or help figuring out where they were. When I talked to Molly directly on the phone, it was her crying, wanting me to calm Colt down because his yelling and cursing was scaring her. I tried to talk to her and him both, trying to calm them down, but had no luck. They were on foot, and it was just the two of them during this. Finally, I stopped answering their phone calls because I felt I didn't want to be a part of whatever was happening.
Yeah.
Which is like interesting because there's like a million phone calls back and forth. Why wouldn't he have?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when I read this stuff, it's like, golly, it's like so many people had an opportunity, and there was a missed opportunity to save these two. And I'm not saying he didn't try, because he did.
No, yeah, he definitely did.
So,
he definitely did. You can
yeah.
see him, but at some point he didn't know what was going on. He was getting very kind of abbreviated information. I don't know if the calls kept on dropping because of the cellular service. That's probably why they kept on calling back. So,
and he was, I mean, these are young kids. So you have to understand that
Yes.
too. I mean, it's like 22 years old. You're scared. You're like, what the hell's going on? I'm sure it was really scary. What about Colby Barrick, Paula? Did you ever talk to Colby Barrick?
No, I mean, other than in February, I think 2017, when we were out there searching on the land behind John Nipp's house, and Colby was laying out there in the pasture. I don't know what he was doing. And then he went in and got the ghillie suit on and came back out and was trying to, hide and watch. And I talked to him that day. I went up to the fence line where he was laying and asked him to get up and help us. I asked him where Molly was, and he said, I don't know Molly. I asked him to help us. He told me, I feel like you've got plenty of help, and I tried to help you before. Had to act like a badass. And what he's referring to, the day the car was found, which was exactly 2 weeks to the day after the police chase, we were on the ranch just directly to the south of the Nip property. It's inside the high fence. We were searching that day, and we were trying to get as close as we could to the Nip property without getting on the Nip property. And Colby came out, and he was standing at the high fence, and went up to the high fence and was talking to Colby, and Colby was relaying to he said something to the effect, I'm the outsider around here. I don't know what to do. But he was tilting his head to the right, which would have been to the west, trying to let people know the car's over there. And so I don't know exactly what all was said down there, but I do remember that. And then I remember getting mad and reaching through the fence and grabbing Colby, and he just wanted his niece back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Colby was he was trying to help in his own way, so he said, but he couldn't do much because he was the outsider around there.
Yeah. No, he said a few times, and some people that we've spoken to, and then in reports that he felt like he was going to get blamed for it. Now you have Con saying to his sister that he's going to get blamed for it, and then you have Colby thinking and saying that he's going to get blamed for this. I don't understand why they would think that if they didn't really know anything and they didn't have anything to do it. And they may not. They may just think that because it's on their property and it's close to them and Con was the last person with them, that all things are going to point at them. But there's been so much disinformation regarding this case that it's hard to see the forest through the trees on what really happened, mainly because of all the information, because it wasn't collected properly in the beginning, and hopefully BIA's got its work cut out. I mean, like we're sitting here, and we have boxes of forms and reports here that we've been scouring over, but there are some similar qualities to some of the narrative here. And so you have to kind of lean into that when you can, but at the same point, you can't, it's not enough to really take you forward in the case until someone comes out.
Well, you got to be careful because the rumor mill runs thick there, and a lot of that is being retold and retold and retold. And as we know that with the rumor mill, every time a story is told, it is embellished a little more and a little more and a little more. Going back to Kobe for a second, I do know just before he came back from prison, this last stint in prison, that he said he was scared to go home because he was afraid he was going to be arrested when he got back because he felt like Con was going to pin this on him. That's not the first time I'd heard it, but that I heard it very, very recent in the last few days, actually. Again, I think I just really don't know anymore.
I know, but this is the problem with this case. I mean, like we've heard so many names thrown about. Unfortunately, Colby and Cons are in the mix because of the proximity, and plus Con was the last to see them. So it's who knows what they're saying to people. We know that Con has talked to law enforcement in the last few months, so we don't know what was said there. Just like the gentleman when we were out at Toby's ranch who showed up and said he knew a bunch of stuff, but he would never say who he heard it from. Mm-hmm. So it's like these are not helpful, and it just creates more disinformation, and we don't really know what happened. And so that's why it's important. Don't call just to inject yourself into the case. Don't call because you think you heard something. If you have something concrete where you have evidence of someone you feel is relevant, at the end of our podcast, we give you all the information to BIA. Send it to them. Let them vet it out. Because at this point, it doesn't help to have all this disinformation. And don't try to go out and look for it for yourself. There's been some circumstances where people have gone out into the properties that are in question. Don't do that. BIA is looking at this case. You need to let them do their job. We've also heard some things where other law enforcement and law enforcement in general, that threats have been made against them, and that shouldn't be happening as well. There's no reason. Let them do their job.
Yeah, but the thing about the threats is it's from people who don't want the case solved, and so that's very discouraging to me. But I think the people need to understand, and I think they need to be encouraged. The BIA is actively working this case. They are definitely actively working this case. It's not a situation where they got a tip and they're going to file that away for later. They're actively investigating this case, so we can rest assured that something's being done. So that's very, very encouraging to me.
Well, it's getting an honest look. It's getting an objective, honest look, because it was, from day one, it was a very biased look because you had Joe, Con's relationship, and then you have the other entities that were looking into it. Some of them were probably trying to do a really good job, trying to do the best they can, but there was too many entities crossing the streams and not working together. And I think that was the biggest problem. And then OSBI got involved. I don't think they were actually still working with the sheriff's department. And so there really wasn't a full, clean investigation. It was very problematic. It wasn't done properly. Evidence was lost. They were following up on things that you were finding. Now it's finally getting a honest, unbiased investigation. Right. It needs to play out. They have all the information. They have everything they need. Hopefully they can come to a conclusion.
I definitely hope so. I'm glad that the BIA has this case. I will be glad when they solve it. I don't have to take the ridicule from other people anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been hard.
And this is not uncommon. I mean, we've dealt with missing person cases before and homicide cases dealing with multiple family members, and it's usually the person who is the stalwart person who's leading the way is the one who gets attacked and basically been shunned because everybody else wants it to go away. And it's understandable. It's a human thing. Everybody wants everything just to go away. They're not going away. They're still missing. It's so hard to tell.
I just don't understand. Okay, this is the thing. Like, if Colby Barrett didn't have anything to do with it, then why wouldn't he talk to anybody?
Well, and this goes along with the person that I spoke with a few days ago. He had some run-ins with Colby and Con, out there and that type of thing. And so he's in the same mindset that Con couldn't have done this alone. And he believes that Colby was the mastermind behind it.
Why does he believe that? Why does he believe that?
Well, they don't think Con was smart enough to take care of it himself. And then there was some information that had told someone that for about a week after Molly and Colt went missing, after that police chase and stuff, Con wouldn't leave his bedroom, that he just stayed in his room. And so let's assume everything's an assumption at this point, right? So whatever happened to them wasn't intentional, and he didn't mean for all of that to happen. He was just in a police chase. He drove by the cops. They ignored him, and he went back by the cops, flying by them to make and spin out in front of them so they would chase him. And he was just out for a good time. And then this happened. So let's assume that just put him into a little bit of depression. He stayed in his room.
Yeah.
So,
he also could have been, the other option, if you want to play two sides of the coin here, the two people that he was with gone missing, and maybe he thinks the people that took care of them were going to come after him. So you don't know what he was scared of. There's so many scenarios here because we've heard so many different types of people involved, so many other names involved. The only reason that those two names keep on coming up is because they live in the area, and Con was the last person to see them in the car chase. That's it.
Well, the truth of the matter is, he's never acted like an innocent man.
Yeah.
Recall going to court and him laughing at us, laughing at the camera, flipping off the camera. That's not the way an innocent person acts.
Yeah, it didn't inspire any kind of confidence that he didn't do it.
Right.
It doesn't, but it doesn't mean that he did do it. I think what happens is, like we all said, I think it's a situation that was artificially escalated by Con by baiting the cops to chase him. It got out of hand. What happened after they crashed the car and they abandoned the car? We've been out there in the dark. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. Colt didn't have a good sense of direction. The report there where, DJ Apley, is that we just read?
Yeah.
And he's saying that he was speaking to them and there was a lot of yelling and screaming going on. So Colt was obviously pissed off. There's the part where you were telling us where they went up to Con's house to find out where he was and they got him on the phone. Right. And Colt was screaming at Con, tell him where we are.
Right.
Now, is that all documented or is that hearsay, that conversation?
That's all documented. That's in a police report.
Okay. So then you have that. So there's a lot of confusion. And then how long after was that again that they went up there and confronted Con?
Oh, that morning, that Monday morning, probably before 9:00.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like DJ Upley, they got tired of, according to their statements, because there was 4 of them, according to their statements, Colt was irate, and they got tired of dealing with it, and they turned off their phones and left the area.
Yeah, because according to them, they were fine. They talked to them. They just didn't want to deal with the wrath and the drama of
right. And
what's going on.
According to one of the people that was out there looking, when they first went up to Con at his house, they had Colt on the phone when they pulled up, from my understanding. And so he asked Con, where is Molly and Colt? And he said, man, they're just effing with you. They're fine. And then Colt hears this on the other end of the line. And he said, let me talk to him. And that's when they handed the phone over to Con to talk to Colt. And then when he hands the phone back to them, he asked Rob Nichols, who is the one that was there, one of the ones that was there of the 4.
And he's in the report.
He told him, he had been in a police chase with Con before, prior to this. It was a stolen Mustang, and it had been left out there. And he said to Rob, you know where we left the Mustang.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I remember all that. Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. The fact that
that's where they were.
Exactly.
They're near there.
But the fact that here's one of the other things that, you think of is that the fact that they were on the phone in front of them with Con, they were still alive at that time.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so that kind of eliminates some of the other theories that Con could have done it or been like I said, I think we've always said that, and you've said it, you've looked him in the eye and he didn't do anything, but he knows what happened.
I felt like he had remorse.
Exactly.
Um,
Do you think that remorse might have been the fact that it was the car chase that kind of stemmed all this and was the catalyst of it? Or it was just, did you feel something different?
Well, so, this was Labor Day weekend. So in September, the first weekend in September of 2013, when we were at his house, he pulled up while me and my sister and my cousin were standing up there at the front porch talking to Jennifer. And that is Con's aunt and Con's grandfather. And Con's dad showed up with him. But so we were talking to them, asking them if we could look around the property. When Con came out to actually speak to us, because Misty asked Jennifer if he would talk to us, and so he did. And I said to him that Molly and Colt are dead. We just don't know where they're at. And I asked him to tell us. And, and that's when he got emotional. That's when Jennifer stood up and came over there and stood beside him and was looking me in the face saying, "Do you really think they're dead?" I said, "I don't think, I know." And then I looked at Con and I said, "I just want to know where they're at." And his response was, "I don't want to go to jail." I said, "Con, I don't want you to go to jail. I just want Molly back." And that's when he walked away.
Yeah.
And he just went and sat at the end of the porch, and Misty went down there and spoke to him, offered him money. He said it wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. I mean, based upon that, at this point though, this far along into the investigation, coming up on a decade, everyone is just, even if they know something, it seems like, why bother at this point? Even if Con wanted to cooperate, and he's talked to law enforcement. I don't know what he said, but I'm sure we don't know what he said. So obviously if BIA is going to, I don't know if they're going to talk to him again or talk to the other people. They said they're going to re-interview people, but the problem is that we've been chasing down this road for so long that who knows, somebody else can be involved. There's been other tips about other people being involved, independent of those two. Mm-hmm. Names have come up that didn't even include those people. So you have to look at all options here. And, and we've heard some other names, which we're not going to talk about right now, but there's people close to all these people that could possibly be involved. It's not like an independent murder a random murder where you're trying to find someone who has no relation to the victim, like a serial killer or anything like that. The people that we're talking about and the people that always been talking about have a connection to these people. It's not somebody who doesn't know these people, who hasn't dealt with these people, Molly and Colt, mostly, So it's hard to see where to go at this point. And hopefully the backtracking and starting from the beginning, like we're doing now again, we keep on going back to the beginning, because once you get to a point where you're kind of lost, you got to go back and get your bearings and say, all right, where did it all...
The answers all lie in the beginning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in my mind that the answers lie in the beginning and those phone records, which we know that, Jody is going over all of that with a fine-tooth comb.
I know. Jody's doing an amazing job.
Yes, she is. She messages me when she has any questions. So yes, that's where the answers lie. Before everything got so skewed, and all the false rumors started.
Yeah, we got boxes of police reports here. Yes. But, and it's like, I don't know how you connect all these dots, when it's all going to come down to someone saying, I know where they are, or I did it. And, and who knows if that's going to happen.
Well, and that's not necessarily true, really, because we've got Cheryl McCollum, we've got Jody Barth, we've got these people looking
Maureen
into
O'Connell, yeah.
this
Hmm.
who are pros at this, you know, and Cheryl said the other day, "I'm not finished," and so I'm very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful that there's information that lies within those reports and those statements given in the very beginning that's going to be very beneficial.
Yeah, we're
So,
hopeful too. And, it's there. Somebody knows. More than one person knows, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
And eventually, they're going to tell.
Well, and I don't, my thing is like, who's protecting who here?
Right.
You know, if you didn't have any involvement in this, why are you protecting? Let's it's a scenario, but let's say Colby, if you didn't have any involvement in this, it was all Khan's doing. Why are you protecting him?
Yeah.
And vice versa. Why? What is it? Who is making you protect them?
Well, I think you're talking a bunch of felons here, okay? They're used to being in and out of the system. When, the old phrase, snitches get stitches. So they don't want to cooperate with law enforcement. One of the stories is that, something happened bad down there and it could have been an accident and no one wanted to call law enforcement because they have too much to hide down there. I mean, they're making drugs, they're growing drugs, they got, some of them are not supposed to have weapons because they're felons. The last thing they want to do is invite a cop party to their party to start looking into things. Even though they had Joe really kind of turning a blind eye to all that stuff, he wasn't the only law enforcement in the area. They called the cops. They didn't know whether or not another police department was going to come by.
Right.
So they made a habit of like taking care of their own stuff. And so I think that's probably the reason why this is the way it is. It's so splintered because there's no honor among thieves, and they're not gonna rat anybody else out because they don't want to have the retribution of and deal with the ramifications of that.
Well, it's not even that, but it's also, I think we've gotten to the point where it's save yourself. You're going to keep protecting people or you're going to save yourself.
Yeah, because it will all come out.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's time for whoever.
I just don't know where this case would be without you pounding the drum so early and for so long. And then now with the podcast kind of revealing and showing to the public what was actually done and what wasn't done, I don't know where this case would be. I think it would have just evaporated.
Oh, for sure. We wouldn't be talking about it. That's for sure.
It would just be listed as another missing persons case, Molly and Colt.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just disappeared.
My mind can't go there,
No, I know. I know.
Like it's not, like it's never going to happen situation. And that's what would have happened. Nobody, I'm glad people are still remembering and talking about Molly and Colt, and so that we have that option, we have that opportunity rather to get the answers.
Yeah.
Even after this long, I believe we will.
Well, I mean, cold cases from 50 years ago get solved, so so it could happen. I mean, with this one case that we were looking into, Lady of the Dunes, happened in the mid 70s, and they just found out who the person. They couldn't even identify the body, and they just identified the body based upon someone looking for their birth mother, and did a DNA, one of those DNA 23andMe thing, and it matched up into the database of the person that was unidentified and that was killed on the beach on the East Coast, and it was his mother. And so now they opened up the case. The FBI opened up the case after 50 years. So things can happen. So you just got to be, how they're going to happen, and hopefully BIA's on track here, and I'm sure they are. And once again, people have information. Go to all the information we laid out at the end of our podcast. Just contact them directly. You can do it anonymously. You can do whatever. And but all we can do is just keep on pounding the drum, making sure people don't forget about Molly and Colt. And it's unfortunate that it's caused you hardship, and I think that's horrible, because all you're doing is trying to do the right thing.
Right. Well, I have thick skin, and I'm not one to be told what to do. And I just, being told to just let it go and just move on about my life. And, I've gone on with my life. But Molly is not going to be forgotten in that, ever. And I just can't fathom just letting it go and moving on. I just can't.
Especially now, because I think there's momentum.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah,
So.
I agree. All right.
Well, Paula, I know you're not feeling well, so
Yeah,
we really
I feel
appreciate you
better.
taking the time to talk to us and kind of going over this. I think it's important to and we'll keep on going through these tips. And if we have any questions for you, you can kind of help us guide us through all this paperwork that you've accumulated. It's amazing. And we only have A through D, right, Sin?
Mm-hmm.
As far as the stuff, it goes all the way.
Yeah,
goes through the alphabet.
Insane.
But
You have what? A through what?
A through
No. I have through
hello.
H.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The ones I gave you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we on the internet, we've got the rest of them. So,
Yep.
golly, there's just so much.
Yeah.
So we'll get through them.
Yep. Okay.
Get through them.
All right, great. Next time on Partners in True Crime.
In the coming weeks, we have some exciting things happening. We have received dozens of requests from our audience to speak to the corruption in the county. We have heard dozens of stories of how people have suffered because of these abuses of power by elected officials.
We're going to be discussing some of these stories with locals and experts to help initiate some changes in the community. We're also going to create an open forum on the podcast.
We're going to have an episode that is completely interactive. We want to hear from you. What are your questions or thoughts on the case? What would you like to discuss with us? And do you have any information to share?
Please submit your questions or comments with your phone number on the website if you would like to be on the podcast, or you would like us to discuss your question or comment.
You can submit this information confidentially directly on the podcast at the bottom of the first page where it says contact.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Partners in True Crime is launching an exciting new podcast, The Killing Hour with Doc Bond. Famous criminologist and author Dr. Scott Bond will be joining Rob and I on a deep dive into true crime and serial killers. It'll be an exploration into the mind of one of the world's most notorious serial killers, Dennis Rader, aka BTK.
We will be joined by special guests featuring BTK's daughter, BTK's prison guard, New York Times best-selling author and Emmy-winning filmmaker Mark Olshaker, the creator of Mindhunters, and more.
Join us every Wednesday as we investigate the sadistic, dark world of serial killers to understand what makes them tick. Learn the signs of these psychopaths who walk among us, because how well do you really know anyone?
If you have any information regarding the case, please contact the BIA at www.bia.gov/BIA/missing-murder-unit.
You can also call their hotline with tips at 1-833-560-2065 and email them directly at ojs_mmu@bia.gov.
And if you want to text them with a tip, text keyword BIAMMU and send your tip to 847-411.
Check the Partners in True Crime website for this and any additional information.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.